I call to order and welcome you to the Middletown, Ohio regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Please join me for a moment of meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. You will hear 3 taps of the gavel when it is time to stand and 1 to be seated. Please join me in a moment of meditation now. Clerk of Council, Ms. Skank, please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Mrs. Carter.
Here.
Mr. West.
Here.
Mr. Horn.
Here.
Mayor Slamka.
Here. Thank you. The next order of business is citizen comments. And please read bullet point number 4 of our citizen comments guidelines on the screen behind us as it pertains to your presentations. A respectful, professional presentation is expected. Personal attacks on staff, council members, or other individuals will not be tolerated. There will be no foul language. This is not time for debate, questions and answer, or any back and forth conversation. This is a time for you, our residents, to be able to present to council on record, uninterrupted, and have the floor. We have received 5 comment cards this evening. I would like to call Amy King to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence, Ms. King. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Amy King. I live at 1616 Sherm Drive in Middletown. We've lived there for 25 years. I have been fortunate enough to work in the city of Middletown for 32. And I'd say for 30 of those years, I've been a very avid, and I still remain a very avid community volunteer. During my time as a community volunteer, I've gotten to work with Chief Burke on a lot of different occasions. I have sent letters, I think, to all of council, and I'm hopeful you all received them. The only response I did receive back was from Mayor Slamka. I also received a very timely response back from City Manager Lawley. No response is a response to me. It's not one that I think is a great response for a person who has worked in Middletown for 32 years. Lived in Middletown for 25 and a very active community volunteer. I understand that you can't share details, but a response very similar to the mayor's, thank you for your concern, would be much appreciated. Going forward with that, though, it's been about a month since Chief Burke was removed from his position. And I understand that you cannot share the details of that, but as a citizen, I would like to understand the process with target dates attached. So if you would consider sharing that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Ms. King. I would like to call Alan Wise to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence, Mr. Wise. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alan Wise. I live at 440 Vincent Court in Middletown. Been a lifelong resident of Middletown, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Chief Burke. I have not had any professional contact with the chief whatsoever, but as someone who participates in many of the activities in Middletown, such as the balloon championships and various car shows, the Jeep meets and so forth, he's always there. So as someone in the community, a citizen of the community, I would like to stress the fact that the chief looks at Middletown policing in the big picture, what I call the big picture. And that is, he's always there. You don't even have to ask, is the chief around? He's there. You just have to look around and he's there. He's spent his entire professional career with this department, and I have known him since he was a patrol officer coming up through the ranks. very dedicated and an asset to the town. And I know he has a lot to work with. I know the job of police chief is a very complex job, but I think he's very well prepared for it, and I think he's done an excellent job. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Thank you for your comments. I would like to call John McGill to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence. Thank you, Mr. McGill.
Evening, Council. My name's John McGill. I am not a Middletown resident currently. I live at 6525 Dickey Road, just outside of town, but I worked for the Middletown Police Department for 33 years. I've known Dave Burke his entire police career, and I know him to be a dedicated civil servant and a very conscientious employee. I had the pleasure or the honor of serving with Dave in all of the different assignments that he had throughout his career. And I left the Middletown Police Department. I went to work for another police department, and then David became chief. But nevertheless, I knew him and had the chance to work with him. And I want to make sure that you know or understand that Dave is a consummate professional. He has the respect of his peers, the employees that work for him, and the police community at large. It's a really hard time to be a police officer in the United States of America today. We face, the police profession has faced untold challenges. One of the things that is a big challenge is politics and how some people choose to define free speech and some other things. I would also like to say this about Dave Burke. He's honest to a fault. Honest to a fault. And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, you need to try to speak to Dave in person yourself. You're going to hear some things, or maybe not. The only thing I can hope is that you'll take the time to listen to Chief Burke before you try to make any decision on some information that's given you from outside of that. There's tough decisions that have to be made when you're chief of police that has to do not only with the people that work for you, but the people that you serve. And it's can be perilous sometimes, and it requires a lot of caution. And I can assure you that Dave puts every bit of his character integrity into those decisions that he makes, and he always tries to make decisions that benefit the city and the officers that are employed for him. I will say this about the city of Middletown. Running a police department is not like running a fire department. It's just not the same. There's different goals, different things that those two entities have to rely upon or focus upon. I'd like you to keep that in mind, and I'd like to emphasize the thing I said about honesty and character. If you have questions about honesty and character, please speak to Dave Burke yourself and give him a chance before you make any kind of decision. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. McGill. I would like to call Bill King to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence, Mr. King.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm William King, live at 1616 Sherm Drive here in Middletown, and I want to talk to, though I'm a fan of, I want to call him Officer Burke, but that's not the reason I rise to talk to you today. I'm interested in an unrelated topic. For the 2023 budget, there was goals and objectives set for the Public Utilities and Utilities Administration, the division goals. There was a plan to either investigate or implement a solar energy project for the city-owned facilities. That's, you can find in section 8 where that was written down, page 21. And I'd like the board to take up this topic at the upcoming strategic meeting. I believe it's on the 20th. I'm interested in the board considering what may have been reported out by the administration with regards to that project, and to reconsider the topic possibly with a different scope. I propose that the municipal waste dump, which is listed as Riverside Village, neighborhood 25 on the city map of neighborhoods, be considered as a 100-acre community solar project. That's what I ask of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. King. And our fifth and final card, I would like to call Jennifer Chen to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You'll have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please come in, Ms. Chen.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Chen. I live at 23 Santa Fe Road, Middletown. I'm here to talk about the Aquatic Center project. So when I was growing up, the house rule was that we had to eat dinner first, and then we could have dessert. The lesson was that we had to do what was necessary for our health and well-being before we could enjoy the empty calories of dessert. Likewise, the city has obligations it needs to meet before spending money on fun but unnecessary projects. One unmet obligation is sanitary sewers in Amanda. When Middletown annexed Amanda from Lemon Township about 30 years ago, the city committed, as part of the agreement, that it would provide all municipal services to Amanda. This was similar, if not identical, to the agreement council approved when it annexed more of Lemon Township last May. That is, and I quote, "The city of Middletown shall," which means must, "provide all municipal services to the territory proposed for annexation, which are available to other parts of the city, including police, fire, and EMS, sanitary sewer, water, waste collection, and planning and zoning services to the same extent and in the same manner as municipal services are provided to other parts of the city." It's 2023. Amanda still does not have the sanitary sewers the city promised 30 years ago. That is a legal obligation the city has failed to meet. Many septic systems in Amanda are failing or very near failure. This can result in homes with barely treated sewage mixing with rain to create standing pools of water hazardous to residents' health. And for 30 years, Amanda residents have had to spend thousands of dollars to replace septic systems they otherwise wouldn't have had to. Amanda also sits directly over the aquifer, on which every town south of Middletown depends for clean water. When it rains, that polluted water can enter the aquifer, contaminating it. The cost to remediate aquifer contamination is much more than the cost to put in sanitary sewers. ARPA provides the opportunity to finally provide these services to the long-suffering residents of Amanda. It is an allowable use of ARPA funds, which can be combined with federal and state grants for sanitary sewer projects. The $7.5 million the city manager identified as available for an aquatic center, combined with such grants, could finally fulfill the city's obligation to the people of Amanda. I have no problem with an aquatic center somewhere in Middletown. I do have a problem with the city committing ARPA dollars and general fund reserves to such a project before the city has met its legal obligation to Amanda. I urge you to act like the responsible adults that you are and take care of your obligation to the city of Amanda before indulging in an aquatic center. Dinner before dessert. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your comments. That concludes our public participation for the evening. The next agenda item is council comments. We will begin to my left with Councilmember Farrell, followed by Councilmember Carter, and then to my right with Councilmember West, followed by Councilmember Horn. I will speak last. Mr. Farrell?
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry. No comments tonight, just missed you guys a couple Tuesdays ago and excited for a new council and see what we get done in the next couple of years. So look forward to working with you guys, and as always, if anybody has any thoughts, or obviously we've had plenty of emails on the Aquatic Center and different things with the new council turnover. Always here to listen, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Ms. Carter?
I'd like to thank the council members for a chance to present a proclamation to the Ministerial Alliance in Middletown, and I'd like to congratulate Perlina Stewart for her Drum Major Award, and Jeff Weiler. Jeff Weiler is from the First Christian Church in Middletown, and he delivered a message that I wish everyone in this room heard. It's really a message about us as a community. I also like to congratulate Clayton Castle for his new position as the communication director, and I welcome him, and I am happy that he's here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Mr. West?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I, along with, I think the rest of the council, would like to congratulate Clayton. Fine young man. I didn't know him before the election, got to know him during the campaign season, and I'm very, very excited that he's coming on. He lives, eats, and breathes anything that involves media, so welcome. I have a couple things. First, I'd like to thank City Manager Lawley and Mr. Tadish. There were a couple issues this week that they quickly jumped on. One was there's some flooding occasionally on Hardin Road. I think it was Hardin Road, right? When it rains, and I had a citizen reach out, and she's like, yeah, my road kind of floods a little bit when it rains. And then I saw a picture, and I'm like, that's a little more than a flood. But thank you for looking into that. Also had a couple concerned parents from St. John the 23rd reach out. We do have a couple school zone signs outside of the school on Manchester, but it's not really marked similarly to some of the other schools. And I know that Middletown City Schools funded, the additional signs. I did contact a couple different state agencies. There's nothing on the market right now, but in February, there is a grant program that's opening up, Safe Streets for All. So maybe kind of put that on your radar. And next school board meeting, I think I've got it next Monday. I'll bring it up to the school to see if we have any funds or donors. But that's about it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Horn.
I want to welcome everyone here tonight. Appreciate you coming out. Looking forward to continuing working with the City Council. In the future, some of my comments are going to be based on education, on helping the citizens understand some of the programs we have here that are free to you and to help you with things that you maybe did not know were available to you. Specifically coming up, the small businesses that can use some help, and we actually have programs that you can take advantage of. And also will help us because that organization helps them write grants. So when you are coming forward to request monies for your business, the forms will be filled out properly, the business plans will be correct, so there'll be less questions, and then we can expedite those funds faster. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. All right, I have about 5 comments. First, I wanted to say that yesterday, January 15th, we as a nation celebrated MLK Day in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Here in Middletown, we had a march planned that was canceled due to weather, but we did have a showing of the 2014 movie Selma, which chronicles Dr. King's campaign to secure equal voting rights via an epic march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in 1965. This was shown at the Sorg Opera House, and it was a wonderful time and reason to come together as a community. The new group that put together this film showing is called the Dream Keepers Film Festival Group. They will be using film to bring to light different conversations for our community and spark dialogue on current issues over the next 6 months until Juneteenth. The conversations will be provocative and worth joining. If you want to learn more, please keep your eyes on our city's website, as that will be one of the places that dates and times of upcoming movie events will be placed. Number 2, Middletown Holiday Hoopla, our marvelous downtown winter event of lights and ice skating, closed out their season yesterday, January 15th. We celebrated a wonderful year for the project. Holiday Hoopla partnered with Light Up Middletown, DMI, which is Downtown Middletown Inc., and City Events to create a very merry Middletown downtown this holiday season that attracted people from across Middletown and well beyond. I look forward to our report from Holiday Hoopla this year and with anticipation for the coming season already. Number 3, just a reminder that council will be voting for board and commissions tonight, so if you have sent in your application, that will be completed this evening. Also, as a reminder, the City of Middletown accepts applications for boards and commissions throughout the year. So if there is something that you have an interest in, please do submit your application. Number 4, during our last regular meeting on January 2nd, 2024, I had asked City Manager Lawley for a presentation on our promotion and hiring practices in the city, and I want to thank him for having created and given us a PowerPoint for council to familiarize ourselves with the policies. Thank you. And then lastly, during our last regular meeting, I had also brought up the discussion around the possibility of streamlining our policy for public comments during work sessions. I would like to put that discussion on the agenda for our next regular meeting on February 6th, 2024. And that is all I have for today. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the city manager's report. City Manager Lawley, you have the floor.
Yes, I do not have anything to report for this evening.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Liley. Ms. Skank, please present the consent agenda.
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes of January the 2nd, 2024. To receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes: the Historic Commission of September 21st, and November 14th, 2023. The Board of Zoning Appeals from October the 4th, 2023. The Board of Health from December 12th, 2023. To confirm the appointments of Clayton Castle to the position of Communication Manager in the City Manager Department, Communications Division. Zachary Pinkleton to the position of Firefighter EMT in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire. And Zachary Dapper to the position of Firefighter Paramedic in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire. To receive and file the oaths of office for Jessica Dingledine and Audrey Thornberry.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Genk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, the yeses have it and the motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Our next item is the motion agenda. Is Ms. Genk, are you the one who reads the motion agenda? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead and present the motion agenda.
Item A is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Ford Development Corporation to proceed with the 18th Avenue resurfacing and water main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $962,913.
Mr. Lawley, do you have anything to add? I'm sorry?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item A to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Ford Development Corporation?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? I just have a couple questions just for clarification. What year was the water line originally installed, please?
Is that 1958?
Yeah, it's 57 or 58.
Okay, wonderful. That was my only question. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes?
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it and the motion passes. Ms. Skank, please continue with item B.
To authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Oberson's Nursery and Landscape, LLC, for the maintenance and enhancement of landscaping at the State Route 122 and I-75 interchange, known as the Gateway, in an amount not to exceed $107,000. This contract may be extended by 3 12-month periods through December 31st, 2027 by mutual agreement of the parties.
And Mr. Lye, do you have anything? Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item B, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Oberson's Nursery and Landscapes, LLC?
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Se-
Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
The yeses have it and the motion passes. The next agenda item is legislation. Legal Representative Mr. Austin Musser, please, legislation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we have 8 items of legislation for your consideration tonight. First is ordinance number O-2024-01, an ordinance authorizing a comprehensive compensation agreement with the Middletown City School District. This is a second reading.
And Mr. Lawley, do you have anything to add?
We don't have anything to add further than our conversation last week. If there's any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer.
Any questions or further discussion?
I just have one question, just to clarify. So we're doing this because of the 2005 law that if we don't do this, then they have to be involved with the city on decisions?
Yeah, that's accurate. That for a lot of these for these incentives, you have an option of either going on a statutory default on the compensation package, or if you want anything different, which this actually memorializes and approves, you would have to go on a case-by-case or project-by-project basis each and every time with the school district.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion or any other questions? I just had one comment, And it was something I already spoke with staff about as well. So I just wanted to say that, so the public can understand what I've asked city staff. When the city grants tax abatements, we do choose to collect the business income tax from these businesses, but we also choose to forego the property tax. The question is, where's the break-even point and for whom? According to this agreement, it will never break even for the schools until the term of tax abatement ends. If we collect more income tax than the property tax forgiven, then the project seems to make sense for the city. However, the school district will not receive the amount of tax they will have collected. They will only be getting 33% what they could have received, and even this 33% will be paid out of the city funds, which is, in effect, residents' money. So I just want to know the full picture of the tax abatement, who gets what, in order to be aware of what we are gaining and what we are losing for each tax abatement being asked of our residents. So going forward, I had requested some information on the financial impacts of each staff report going forward for the tax abatements. And I just wanted to say that we do know that as a community, in the system that we are in, encouraging business investment involves trade-offs. I want to be informed of what these trade-offs are so that I can make the most fully informed and sound decision. That is all for me.
Nathan, how often are we actually doing TIF agreements? One a year?
Yeah, I mean, typically, the creation of new TIFs, because, all of our other TIFs are covered under the recently expired compensation agreement, but, we're creating maybe one a year, two at most.
I was just curious. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
We'll need a motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And do we have a second for this legislation?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Gank, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Okay, the yeses have it, and the legislation passes. Mr. Musser, the next legislation, please.
The second item tonight is ordinance number O-2024-02, an ordinance authorizing the amendment of a contract with J. Schmidt Homes, LLC, to install 9 pickleball courts, resurface 18 pickleball courts, and construct a shelter at Lefferson Park and declaring an emergency.
Are there any other comments, or Mr. Lawley, did you have the staff report?
So council, just this legislation was originally passed in December by City Council to fund the construction of and repair of the pickleball courts. However, we noticed this essentially is a change order. We noticed there was an error omitting the $19,559 performance bond, and this is catching it, making the original legislation complete, catching it back up, and is the reason for the emergency nature of this piece of legislation.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions for Mr. Lawley or anyone?
I have a question. 18 pickleball courts, where will they go?
So they're already there. 18 are already there. They're adding 9 more to where the 18 are. So essentially, if you look at where the pickleball courts are at Lefferson Park, they will extend out towards Brill Boulevard, going in the direction of where Brill Boulevard is. So if you look where Johns Road comes in.
Isn't that Brill Boulevard?
No, it's several acres away from actually where Brill Boulevard. I was just trying to give you a description of the side of the park where the pickleball courts currently are, and the 9 additional courts will extend out from the 18 that are already there.
Okay, so the only place you can play pickleball will be at Lefferson Park?
That's the only place I'm aware of pickleball courts in Middletown. I don't know of anybody else that has pickleball courts.
I just heard from the audience that's the only place outside. There are some places inside as well.
So, okay, so that's the only area you'll be able to play pickleball is Lefferson Park.
That I'm aware of. I don't know of any other facility in Middletown that has pickleball courts, or we have never been approached by any other organization to place pickleball courts in. There had been some talk about maybe a couple of the parks where there are tennis courts to retrofit them to pickleball courts, but we never had any official request to do so.
I was thinking that we would have one at least in every park in Middletown.
That's something we can look at in the future when we talk with the park board about the improvements we're doing at our city parks.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the legislation? Any other questions? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2024-02 to authorize the amendment of a contract with J. Schmidt Homes LLC?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
No.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes. The yeses have it, and the legislation passes and will go into effect today, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is ordinance number O-2024-03, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Department of Environmental and Financial Assistance for the Fleming Road Water Main Replacement Project and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Lawley?
Council, this allows the city manager to apply, accept, and enter into a loan agreement with the Ohio EPA to commence the work on the Fleming Road Water Main Replacement Project. The estimated cost of this project is $2.7 million, and the Water Capital Fund is used to repay this loan.
Are there any questions or discussion? And Mr. Lawley, just for public input, will you please speak to why the legislation is an emergency today?
So they can get going on doing the groundwork for putting in place the funds available to do the project.
Thank you.
Scott, do you have anything to further add on that? Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Wonderful. And did you already clarify where on Fleming Road, between where and where this is taking place?
It's between University and the dead end, all the way up east of Aberdeen. So it's a pretty long stretch. I want to say it's a mile or mile and a half. So from Miami Park almost to Wildwood Golf Course.
And do we know yet how we will be announcing this to the public so they can prepare?
So we'll hand out notices to the affected residents.
All right.
So that's our project inspector will do that. So
Okay.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Nope.
This will be Clayton's first job as the PR guy. Get the information out.
He's gonna door knock.
We do a good job in making sure residents know what's going on in major projects like that, especially those who are affected in that area whose water may be turned off for a certain period of time.
Zach and I vote that he door knocks.
Yes.
I think you're used to it.
Mr. West thinks that he should go door to door. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Hearing no more discussion or questions, we will, do I have a motion to approve ordinance number O-2024-03 to authorize the city manager to apply for this loan?
Motion.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Kank, please call the roll.
I just want to clarify, who made the second?
I think I was.
Okay, Mr. Okay, I just want to make sure that I properly record it.
I get the next one though.
Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes. It will go into effect today.
Item 4 this evening is ordinance number O-2024-04, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Department of Environmental and Financial Assistance for construction of a 2 million gallon water storage tank and declaring an emergency.
And Mr. Lawley?
This, like number 3, is for the DEFA loans for the construction of a new 2 million gallon water tank that is located in the Armbruster Nature Reserve area next to the one that is currently there. The estimated cost of this project is $15 million and also comes out of the Water Capital Fund. And once again, the reason for the emergency nature of this legislation is so we can get the DEFA loan application process going so we can commence the project.
Thank you. Any other further questions or comments?
Well, it's an emergency, but I know this is something that's been in front of council for the last year and
Yes.
come back multiple times. So
Yes.
Anyone else? And I think what will be happening with the old tower, you said it will still be in use?
Yes, yes.
Okay, wonderful. And do we have a balance on our water capital reserve fund, knowing that we're looking at using it for the 3 projects today?
Yeah, so right now, I checked the finance director, we have around $4.2 million in our cash balance right now. That's going to be a little bit different than what's reported in our financials. I'll bore you with this, but you'll see actually a negative fund balance, which is a little scary at first when you see it. But that's because we have to show these encumbrances. But these loans, they are loans, but the initial construction dollars are on a reimbursement basis. So every dollar that we spend then gets pretty much immediately reimbursed. And then once the project's finalized, then that determines the city's overall indebtedness to EPA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cahall. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve Ordinance 2024-04, authorizing the city manager to apply for this revolving loan?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes and will go into effect today.
The 5th item tonight is resolution number R 2024-01, a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Urban Forestry Grant Program and enter into a grant agreement if awarded and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Lawley?
Council, this allows the city manager to apply for and accept a $500,000 Ohio Department of Natural Resource Division of Forestry Urban Canopy Restoration Grant for various arbor and horticultural infrastructure programs. Say that real fast again. This grant is 100% funded with no city match requirement, and our reason for the emergency nature of this legislation is it must be submitted to the ODNR by January 31st of 2024.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments?
I just had a quick, is this a newer program for ODNR?
It's actually,
Can you speak into a microphone? Thank you.
Sorry for making you come down.
Thank you.
it's actually, as far as we know, a one-time opportunity grant.
Okay.
Because it came from U.S. Forestry Service. So
Nice.
they're essentially, ODNR applied for a grant application with U.S. Forest Service, which they're funneling that funding through us, or well, on down to us.
No, that's great. I was just curious because years ago we worked on, when Middletown became Tree City USA, we didn't have any funds or resources, so this is good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I think this is a very, very exciting. I just wanted to read what the grant will be covering. Would that work?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Citywide public tree inventory and risk assessment, creation of an urban forestry management plan, high-risk tree mitigation with a 1-to-1 replanting ratio in underserved census tracts, and mature tree pruning and young tree training services in underserved census tracts as well. Is there any other discussion or any other questions? Hearing none, let's see. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-01 to authorize the submission of a grant? Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded, and Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell, Mrs. Carter, Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the legislation passes and will go into effect today.
Item number 6 this evening is resolution number R 2024-02, a resolution authorizing an amendment to the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the City of Middletown and Ohio Soda LLC. This is presented as a first reading.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes, Council, the city entered into a CRA agreement with Ohio Soda LLC at 1700 Central Avenue. The intent was to refurbish 5 commercial storefronts and create 10 one-bedroom upper floor apartments. This agreement is for 100% tax abatement and was executed originally, started the process on July 7th of 2022, and through COVID really caused a problem with this agreement here. The owner of the property was having issues because of COVID, getting supplies, materials to complete the project. And at the end of the day, we worked out an agreement to have it completed by 12/31 of 2023. However, the project now is about 90% complete, and just due to the contractors being unable to properly obtain further get equipment, supplies, and materials, they are behind schedule. The new deadline is June 1st, 2024, and that's why they are asking for an additional extension.
Thank you, Mr. Lawley. Do we have any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Horn.
Paul, on the 90% of the project, has that been verified by
Yes.
the building official?
No, it has been verified by our Economic Development Department. Jacob Schulte, our Economic Program Manager, who has met frequently with the owners of Ohio Soda to ensure that they have met various benchmarks of the grant, or excuse me, of the CRA.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
And I don't mind when we come back for the second reading of this, that we give them some courtesy and say, okay, 90% of the project's done, but in order for you to get your CFO, that's your certificate of occupancy, by June 1st, you have to have your plumbing final, you have to have your HVAC inspected, you have to have your electrical final, and you have to have, and then that also takes some time because the building official has to go through, and sometimes the fire department has to go through, because this is a dual-use property, meaning that the emergency systems have to be checked properly. That's all I'm saying is, so if someone has verified that 90% of the project is been checked, and it's normally the building official, but if there's another group that does it, that's fine.
Yeah, and actually, I got a late email here this afternoon from Jacob Schulte, and he said they are actually on the verge of getting their certificate of occupancy. Nathan might be able to add.
Yeah, I believe anecdotally, one of our staff, Mr. Schulte, was just saying that they're actually in the process of trying to schedule their finals on several of the trades. There's one that's lagging, but they fully understand that they have to have all of those kicked out before a CFO gets issued by the city.
All right, thank you. Any other, go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
I went through this property when it was for sale before this owner bought it, and it was horrible is the only way to describe it. So
That's very kind.
right. Even I wouldn't buy it. So anyways, yeah, I think the city's doing a good job. This is a step in the right direction of being pro-business and working with these investors and groups that are willing to invest in our downtown and our historic old buildings. I think we have to be a little bit flexible on these things, so I have no problem supporting it for that reason.
Any other comments?
Yes, I like the idea that there will be 10 one-bedroom upper floor apartments. That's great.
Yes, we are working on trying to have more people living in the downtown area, so that does work. Also, I was just curious, the original, from what I read, it looks like the original agreement was approved by council in 2021. Is that correct? Because we just said it was July 7th of 2022. Was there like another extension given, or am I incorrect?
No, I think actually the city manager misspoke on the month. It was actually executed in January of '22. I believe council approval was either late November or early December of the previous year, and so by the time everything got papered up, that's when things were executed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02 to authorize?
That's a first reading.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's right. Forgive me. Because this is a first reading, there is no action to be taken at this time. Next, Mr. Musser.
Item number 7 this evening is ordinance number 2024-05, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to negotiate a cooperative agreement with the Great Miami Valley YMCA for the construction and operation of a public aquatics park. And again, this is presented as a first reading.
Ms. Lawley?
The only thing I had to add is I had a little bit of a conversation today with Tyler Roberts of the Greater Miami Valley YMCA. As soon as he gets back into town, we are going to sit down and start formulating the official agreement with the city and the Greater Miami Valley YMCA, if it passes.
And when will he be returning to town? I'm sorry, did you say when he'll be returning to town?
I'm not sure when he gets back, I think at the end of this week.
Okay.
Once again, we're going to get working on it in case it does pass at the next council meeting, so we'll be ready to go.
Fantastic. Are there any comments or questions?
So before we, what's brought forward is, I think, more of a loose plan, right, currently as a first reading. So for a second reading, theoretically, in 2 weeks, we would get a little bit more of an exact contract, I assume.
Yes. Okay. That's what I'm aiming for.
Good.
And Mr. Farrell and Mr. West, I would invite you to, would you like to speak to why you brought this to the legislation at this time?
Yeah, I know for me personally, I kind of look back, COVID kind of threw us off. It seems like COVID was last year, but it was approaching 4 years ago. But I look back, and I think the very first article that Mr. McCrabb wrote on this was October 2019, a potential aquatic park or aquatic center coming to Middletown. So, I mean, this has been an idea that's been circumvented around, our city, our community. This was obviously, a hot topic last year for the previous council. It never, unfortunately never came to a vote. But nonetheless, this last year, reaching out and speaking to a lot of folks, there's no perfect solution on this. There's not a perfect solution. But I think that the timing for me, again, this has been discussed for years in the community, but the reason why I've leaned more towards the why is they have a proposal. It's tangible. And I've been very outspoken that I will not support a city-owned or operated facility. I think our staff has enough, Public Works has enough going on. When we look at the liability standpoint, it's risk kind of all around for the city. Plus, when we look at long-term maintenance, it's very expensive. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me this last week. And again, I'd like to remind the community that we still have $2 million in ARPA funds set aside for the parks. There's a lot of people saying, hey, what about, for the parks? We still have ARPA funds set aside for the parks. And also, there's sort of a sentiment that we're just building a free aquatic center for the Y. And again, I'd argue that point because the Y knows that this is a monumental task, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to operate, let alone maintain. This is not risk adverse for the YMCA. This is risk. When we look at their membership numbers, how many units they have, what their target is to sort of compensate for the additional staff, additional insurance that they're going to have to carry on this facility, they've got their work cut out for them. Now, we all know that kind of moving forward, there are more residents moving in, sort of adjacent to the Y, so I think they're banking on, some of those families or some of those young professionals will join the Y out of convenience. I know transportation's a challenge, but transportation would be a challenge anywhere we put it in the community. If we put it on the old Lincoln site, for example, it would be a challenge for, a number of families to visit it. I've also been asked specifically on what the Y would charge, and Tyler walked us through that last week. And I've reminded folks that even if this were a city-owned facility, it wouldn't be free anyway. It would not be free anyway. In fact, it would probably cost us down the road. We'd probably have a tax levy down the road for some significant, upgrades or significant replacement of equipment. I think, East Butler East Butler YMCA, they just had one slide refinished, and I think it was like $35,000 or $40,000 for one slide. So I would argue that, the last thing that we need to put on city staff is owning and operating one of these. It's a significant challenge. I put a pool in about 2015, and if my kids wouldn't kill me, I'd fill it. I would fill it. It's just money every year. Every year you think you're ahead of it, and it's always something breaking, always something that you need. So those are my comments on it. I encourage the community to continue to send their thoughts on what they feel is best. Again, I think if we had room downtown and the YMCA was positioned where they had, additional space next to their pump room down there, that'd be really cool, to have down there. But we have to work with what we have, and looking at other options, it would cost at least 2 times, maybe even more, to build, and we kind of know how that works. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know if anybody else has additional comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. West. Mr. Farrell, did you want to go ahead and speak to your legislation as well?
Sure, and I would encourage the other 2 council members to give their thoughts, and you as well, Mayor, but a couple things that ring in my mind. The first step is progress is only progress when people don't get left behind. And I look at this project wholeheartedly, and I don't see how any one person gets left behind in this. So anytime I'm up here trying to make a decision, is it neutral for everyone, or is it going to benefit everyone? And I think firsthand, yes, but then I think economically, which we look at one project. One project doesn't change any one thing, but it's another step. I went over all this for my thoughts, if anybody's watched these council meetings for the last 2 years on it, but I think economically, I think it helps people. It keeps people safer, if that's a word. And then we have, there are people that are against this, yes. I look at the emails that I just received. I received about 10 negative emails. I found, over doing this for 2 years, people oftentimes, they don't email to tell you positive things that they're for. It's mostly just people that tell you things that they're against. And that's not always, but you'll get some positive things. But mostly, I think people are okay as long as it's not hurting them. So I look at our population. We have 50,914 people in Middletown. So to me, that says maybe we have 50,904 people that support it. Now, obviously, that's an exaggeration, but I look wholeheartedly. I don't see how this, I've heard this, we should spend it on other things. Correct. There's so many issues that you can take care of. It's never ending. However, this does solve a need and a want for a lot of citizens. And then we look at whether it's Splashdown or another project like that. It is irresponsible to ever allow this city to operate a pool, ever again. It's just irresponsible. And I personally think spending money on studies and all those different things, I think it's a little irresponsible as well. That's just wasting taxpayer dollars. I can find the same stuff on the U.S. Middletown census data. The same stuff that's in the packet Mr. Horn had, I can find that in probably 15 minutes. I don't think we need to waste $25,000 to $30,000 of the taxpayers' dollars on that. I'm never going to support that. Overall, we have to change the quality of life in this city. I sit around, I'm going to go on a rant, but I sit around and I listen to people that, my grandparents or whoever else, that say, we don't support this, or not that my grandparents don't, they do, but different people. And then I look and I ask and I say, well, where do your kids live now? Well, they live in Virginia, or they live in Florida, they went there, they went here. And I think, what if you gave them better memories? Why did I stay here? Why do all my friends live in Renaissance? And why do they all live in Springboro? And why do they all live in Monroe? They want to be here, but there's nothing for their kids to do here. They all stayed local because they believe in this city. And I'm just trying to speak truth right now. If you start giving people things to do, they're going to come back. Our most talented people have left, and we have to get them back. And how do you get them back? By giving them things to do. We can solve an issue right now today. Well, I guess in 2 weeks potentially. But anyways, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Are there any? Yes, Mr. Horn.
I appreciate what both Zach and Steve have said. And what I want to address is, because I've received a lot of emails too, thank you, read them all. And I'm seeing both sides of this. But on the things that Tyler said on 2 occasions, the reason there's some urgency with this is in order for them to give us this, construction takes time. Working through the paperwork takes time. Getting all these things together takes time. In order for us, there is no universe you're going to have an Aqua Center in May of 2024. There's just, there's no way it's going to happen. What we're attempting to try to do here is, if we can get this pushed through and we release them with a proper contract in March, they are saying they will have a new aquatic center, that the citizens of Middletown get a discount, and even mentioned in his presentation that you can come there for 2 weeks and utilize all services before you have to provide a W-2 to take advantage of other programs. So the reason why there's some urgency here is because in order for that to happen, and all the things that need to come about, because the thing is they can't be still working in May of 2025. This is a major construction project. They'll have to be done by April of 2025 to do all the startup, all the checking, the balances, all the training, and to make sure that they have the 5 lifeguards that need to be there. But the nice thing about the YMCA, which I appreciated about his presentation, was they are giving you a history. This group, this company, has been in business for over a century. And if you go out of town and go over to Countryside YMCA, it has a beautiful mural. And when you drive there, pretty much any time, you will see families coming in and out of that. And then they have a nice aquatic center. There's another small aquatic center in Liberty Township. And you'll see families coming in and out of that during the summer months. So that's why there's some urgency with this, is because in order for us to have this to happen by May of 2025, we have to show some urgency with our due diligence and being fiscally responsible, as we gave an oath to do. But this is why we are doing this, so we have this to offer. Because to be blunt, we've seen cities around us that have so much less population have just blown by us because they have given their citizens entertainment, shopping, and restaurants. And we can do this too with no problem. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Does anybody else want to speak to anything here? Any discussion or questions?
I am a board member of the YMCA, so I abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
And I will say one thing. I had somebody call me yesterday and ask me this. The Y did go about getting multiple quotes on this from multiple companies, no less than 3 companies. So they didn't just get one quote in and say, oh, here we go. I know they worked pretty diligently for months trying to figure out the correct plan. Once again, I'm not going to tell somebody who knows way more than me how to run their business, so I didn't feel that I needed to go in there and tell them, change this slide height or change how it spins or these different types of things. And as well as the process of the rush, I don't feel that this project's been rushed. To Mr. West's point, this is something that's been through council multiple times. And the last thing I'll say is, if it's not today, if it's not this council, if it's not the next council, at some point, I don't see how Middletown doesn't do this. And if we delay it 3, 5, 6 more years, are we not at the end of the day still costing our taxpayers dollars if we're going to allow the price to continue to go up? It's another thing I look at and think that if this is a value, and I just don't see why you delay the inevitable of what is good for people and what people want. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you. I did have any other questions or comments? No. I did have a question. So we are talking about having this complete by the summer or the early summer of 2025, and that's wonderful. Is there a reason why it needs to be done by the summer of 2025? Why not 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump on that. I think if you look at, and this is no stab at the previous council, but if they would have approved this last year, it would have saved, what, 400,000? What was it, Zach? So I'm not saying if we delay it more, it's going to go up that much, but it's almost like we have to get out of our own way, and we have to get some things moving. The cost certainly won't go down. So again, I don't feel like this is rushed. This has been a topic since pre-COVID.
I read a bunch of, sorry, Mayor.
That's fine, go ahead.
I read multiple, Facebook, right? But I read these Facebook comments of, there's a few negative people, and then I look at, not to be creepy, but I look at all these people that commented from different cities, and I found out where they live, Hamilton, Lebanon. You guys build this, we can't wait to come. And then I sit back and I wonder, am I as a citizen sometimes not as supportive of Middletown as other people are? And I think, how do you change the mindset of Middletown from the outside in and the inside out? And I think oftentimes you have to bring people from other areas into the city to bring that. And as far as the hurry goes, if we are going to do this, at least for my vote, I want to, are we going to continue to delay the progress of Middletown like we've done for so many years? Or are we going to be the council that steps up, that says progress is who we are going to make the change? So do we want to be a part of the change, or do we want to be a part of the problem that we say, we could have had the Racino, we could have had the outlet malls, we could have had all this great stuff, but here sits green space. So who do we want to be? I think that's the question I ask myself, and I know who I want to be.
Thank you. Any other comments for that? And so I have some comments as well. And to speak to that, I don't know if it's really part of the progress or part of the problem, especially when we look at all the items that we do need to take care of in Middletown. I think eventually that an aquatic center would be something like we were saying up here, that would be something that Middletown would do. I just don't know if right now is the right time, given all the needs that we have in Middletown. Thank you for answering those questions. And we talk about price going up, and that could be true. It is also speculative. We don't know. As the bottlenecks are being released in the supply chain and demand, prices might go down. And again, probability is they will continue to rise, but we don't know yet. It's speculative. And I know that, yes, Council Member Farrell, you're excellent at finding information. And when I speak to a feasibility study, I think it's good business practice. It's good for the city to go into these projects with evidence, with information that we can point to from a third party that says this is exactly what we're looking at. This is why we're doing it. This is the cost breakdown for the people. This is the agreement itself. This is who we're looking to attract. This is what it would be like. It seems like a good business practice, especially for maybe 25 grand, maybe 30 grand. I'm not sure how much it costs for this kind of feasibility study, but especially for a 3.2, possibly $1 million project, I think that's good money spent. I did have a question. Do we have a reason why, Mr. Lally, it says 3.2 million? Is that going to be changing?
The figure 3.2 million?
For the cost?
Yeah. The estimation at the special council meeting and the meeting that was held in late December with Tyler Roberts was an estimation of $2.7 to $3 million. We felt we wanted to go with $3.2 million just to give us a little bit of cushion there in case there are cost overruns.
Thank you. Anybody want to speak to that?
I wanted to speak a little bit on the feasibility study. I mean, I've looked at a handful of feasibility studies from that particular consulting firm. And I will say this, I mean, they put together a cost estimate, they put together some census data, things like that. And I don't know the why extremely well, but I know the why well enough. They are a risk-adverse nonprofit organization that's been around for a century. And I trust their judgment. And when I look at all of the time and the resources that they put in over the last couple of years putting together really their proposal, really it's a feasibility study. I mean, they've done their market research. They've looked at this, you know, the surrounding communities. I mean, we know as a city we have plenty of population, and we've all seen neighboring citizens from, you know, Hamilton and Liberty Township and Springboro and even out east side past Hunter. You know, people say, oh, please build it. So I kind of look at it where, you know, the Y is very, very conservative, and they're comfortable that they can really build their business up enough to cover the operating costs. So I kind of look at them as the feasibility study in itself.
Would it work for you? I'd like to go ahead and say we can vote on the feasibility study right now, just either way, to see how it looks, just to be official.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I move that we do vote on the opportunity for the city manager to look into a feasibility study for this project. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion further? Okay, let's go ahead and call the vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell. Mrs. Carter.
Abstain.
Mr. West.
No.
Mr. Horn.
No.
The noes have it. We will not be doing a feasibility study for this project. Thank you, everyone. And then I did want to also, one more comment. I believe this will be it for me tonight for this legislation. I am uncomfortable, I will go ahead and reiterate that, to use the ARPA funds for the Aquatic Center, similar to what Ms. Chen spoke about this evening. I did originally even want to look at the possibility, if this does go through, of looking at other funds besides ARPA to pay for this, because we do have so much need in Middletown. ARPA funds can be used for that, and because of the last the work session, we talked about the possibility of about $7.5 million in possible funds that we could look at, maybe going with a different route as far as funding. When we still have people without sewers, it just doesn't seem the right time to me to use our money on an aquatic center, although I do appreciate everything that was said tonight, especially what Mr. Farrell was saying about solving one of the items. That is true. But again, for me, it doesn't seem like the right time. That's all for me. Is there any other conversation about this tonight?
Yes, Mayor, if I can, this Saturday at the special council meeting, we will have one of the agenda items to be the city finances and general fund reserve dollars and ARPA dollars left. And maybe gleaning from what information we give you there could be, you know, some other sources of monies that we identified to use for this particular project. Fantastic. What we learned and pass on to you Saturday.
Thank you. I was thinking about you looking also at maybe perhaps Port Authority, the new community authority, those kinds of things. Did anybody else want to say anything?
Let me ask you a question. Is there, you probably can't pull this information, but is there any way to figure out what the rental versus homeowner occupied rate is in the Amanda area that has septic?
We can try, yeah, I don't, we can try, have that information for you Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, we may be able to, we can probably extract an estimate out of our utility billing information, because I believe we do track between owner occupied versus a tenant that may have landlord responsibility for the bill at the end of the day. So let us look into that.
Okay. I'm just curious, Mayor, to your point. So obviously I want to get this project done, the same as you do. So would you say that we would do this and then, oftentimes in situations like this, I know this from real estate, you go to the homeowners and you say you have the ability to hook up to public sewer. Are you interested? Do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay a portion of it? What's your thoughts there? Or is this something, maybe we should just save this for Saturday, actually. It's probably a wholehearted discussion.
It's a big discussion, yes, and I'm excited to look into it, and staff is already looking into it as well. So they're currently doing that as well, looking for the Amanda district. Did you want to turn on your microphone, Ms. Carter? So you can be heard?
Sorry, no.
No? Okay. Was there any other comment for this? Any questions? No? Okay, as this is a first reading, there's no further action to be taken at this time. Mr. Musser, number 8?
Item 8 this evening is resolution number R 2024-03, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for improvements to a portion of State Route 122 Roosevelt Boulevard. This is a first reading.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes, Council, this is to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with ODOT for pavement and repair of State Route 122 between Jackson Lane and the University Roosevelt overpass. The total cost of the project is $2.8 million, with the city share being at $1.4 million.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions at this time?
I'm just kind of curious, actually. Obviously, this is a heavily traveled area with semis and everything. How often do we end up paving this? Any idea? Probably more of a question for Scott.
Scott?
And Scott, I expect you to know how often we pave every single road in Middletown.
Not enough.
One I actually remember being paved before.
I do too. That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
So I'd say on the state routes boulevards, 15 to 20 at the most.
Okay.
Out of the pavement. So.
Very good.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tadich. Any other questions or comments at this time? Forgive me, I couldn't find it. Does the staff report indicate where the city's money is coming from to pay for this project, or how have we budgeted it? Thank you.
So it can be a combination of funds. It could be the street levy, it could be the auto and gas tax, or capital improvements. We'll budget for it for 2025.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, is there any further discussion on this legislation? Okay. As this is a first reading, there's no action to be taken at this time. So that concludes the legislation for the evening. The next item on the agenda is new business. Do any council members have any new business for this evening? All right, I also do not. So hearing none, the next item on the agenda is executive session. And there is a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage. Do we have a motion to move to executive session?
Motion.
Do we have a second? Second. It has been properly moved and seconded to move to executive session. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell? Yes. Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes. The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Council will now move to executive session. We will be returning to open session to vote on board and commission appointments and vice mayor. Okay, do we have a motion to return to open session?
Motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Here.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, the yeses have it. We return to open session. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the boards and commissions appointments. For Airport Commission, we have one position available due to resignation, and we have one position available. I move to appoint Chip Height to Airport Commission. Do we have a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes?
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, the yeses have it, and the motion passes. Next is Middletown Board of Health and Environment. They have one position available. I move to appoint Emily Miller to Middletown Board of Health and Environment. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
The yeses have it, the motion passes. Next is Cemetery Board, which has one position available and one person has applied. I move to appoint Deborah Morrison Snyder to Cemetery Board. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Next is Planning Commission, which has four positions available, and looks like, how many people have applied?
5.
Five people, thank you. I move to appoint Glenn Roger Daniel, Will Parsons, David Cash, and Nancy Griffith to Planning Commission. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, I lost my place there for a minute. Who seconded?
Steve.
Okay,
Mr.
sorry.
West.
Paul
was
and I
writing.
did simultaneously.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes. Yeses have it, and the motion passes. Next is the Citizens Advisory Board to the Police, which has 15 positions available, and we had 6 people apply, and we continue to receive applications on an ongoing basis. I move to appoint Jeff Wilder, Dr. Celeste Didlick-Davis, Calvarez Wills, Ruth Kelly, Alan Wise, and Rick Pierce to the Citizens Advisory Board to the Police. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Next is the Civil Service Commission, which has 2 positions open, and 3 people have applied. Bill Becker and Kathleen Batlaner have both served on this board previously and have reapplied. I move that they be reappointed. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Next is the Library Board, which has 3 positions open and 5 people have applied. I move to appoint Timothy Essex, Jay Marlowe, and Andrew Dunn to the Library Board. Do we have a second?
Second.
Beat you.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Yeses have it. The motion passes. Next is the Park Board, which has 2 positions available and 4 people have applied. I move to appoint Julie Kaufman and Danielle Woodward to the Park Board. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Building Housing Appeals Board has 2 positions available, and we have received 0 applications. Income Tax Review Board has 2 positions available, and we have received 0 applications. As I said earlier, the city continues to receive applications to boards and commissions on an ongoing basis. If you have interest, please apply. You can go to the city website at cityofmiddletown.org, click on the Government tab at the top left, and then click on Boards and Commissions in the panel to the left. And you will find the universal application there and more in-depth information about each board or commission. That concludes our appointments for boards and commissions. So what I do want to say now is that the council is tabling our discussion on appointments for council liaisons for our boards, and we will be having an executive session to speak about this before the next regular meeting. It will be at 5 p.m. on February 6th, Tuesday, February 6th, here in council chambers, and I will be sending out the request for a special meeting. Our next item of business is City Council's appointment for Vice Mayor. I move to appoint Zach Farrell to the position of Vice Mayor. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Gank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Yeses have it, and the motion passes. That concludes our regular council meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024 at 9:14 p.m. This meeting is adjourned until this Saturday, January 20th, 2024 at 8 a.m. at 3907 Central Avenue in Central Connections for council strategic planning work session. Thank you and good night.